It does get to me sometimes, right? Where I gain 3 pounds within a day and I'm like, what the hell? Like it just happened one day that I'm off.
We were talking right before this, and a question came up on one of our calls, and this is something that I've had a couple of discussions about lately. How many times do you have to fail, or is it okay? Like, how many times is it okay to fail? Was that the question? I forget what it was.
That's good.
We were, Katie and I the other day were having a discussion about failure and like how you approach failure. And one of the things I was telling you was like when you run a business, like you better get used to failure because you're going to fail all the time. And you just get so used to it that whenever you encounter failure, you just get over it really quick because you just have to keep moving or else things will just completely stop, right? Mm-hmm. And I think when you go through that a few times, then you just think that's how everybody handles it. But actually, a lot of people need time to recover from these quote unquote failures before they're able to kind of move on to the next thing, right?
Right.
So this question kind of came up during one of our calls, like how many times is it okay to fail? So I'll just ask you, like, how many times do you have to fail? Like, can you just keep failing forever? Like, what is that? What was your?
Well, I don't know.
What was your answer?
Should we put the question in context a little bit?
No, just failure in general.
Just failure in general.
Yeah.
Well, marriage.
So this is a client who's been with us for a year and a half, I think, at this point, pretty much. And had a weight loss goal. Actually didn't even when she started. She was very skeptical that she'd be able to lose weight and keep it off. And she wasn't even sure if that's what she wanted. And instead, what she started with was doing like an 800-gram challenge where the goal was simply just to eat more fruits and vegetables.
Yep.
And just in doing that, without any other intervention, she did end up losing weight. And when she realized that she could lose weight in a way that felt good, where she didn't feel restricted, then she actually set a weight loss goal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And she basically kept on following similar habits that got her she lost 20 pounds of weight over a year and kept it off.
That's great.
And relatively recently, has experienced a number of life stresses. Things like her job has changed, her dad has gotten sick, there's additional demands on her time from having a kid, and so she hasn't committed the same level of attention to her nutrition as she once did. And so now she's having this feeling like, oh man, is all of that progress that I made just gone to waste? You know, took a scan that's like, oh, I'm back to where I started. And it happened so quickly and it took so long to get this far. So it's like, is it all lost? So that's kind of the context. And I think like this is something that we can all relate to, right? Mm-hmm. Like we've all made progress on a thing and then backslid in some way or had other things take priority. Mm-hmm. So anyway, just to offer some.
Yeah, that's great. So what's your answer? Because you can get a chance to answer that question. So how many times do you have to fail?
As many as it needs to take.
How do you think about failure? Because, I mean, we've had a bunch of our own personal failures as it relates to health and fitness, you know, doing competitions, that kind of thing, and then working with clients as well. Like, how do you think about that? Is it, like, how do you frame that for people? When you're running a business, like, you're always on the brink of failure, right? There's, like, you could do one dumb thing and the thing could go out of business, right? And there's a lot of things that happen that are out of your control, like government shuts everybody down, right? Mm-hmm. That where you could just pack it in, right? And at a certain point, I realized that if you don't give up completely, then you've never actually failed. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. It's just one of the twists and turns on the journey to getting to wherever you want to be. And I thought about this in terms of my own weight loss. It's like, you know, when you lose 100 pounds, it doesn't happen like, you know, day 1, you lost 1 pound, and then day, 1,000, you lost 100 pounds, and it's not linear, right? It's like you lose 15 or 20 pounds, and then you gain 10 pounds, and then you lose another 30 pounds, and then you gain 20, and then maybe you lose another 20, and you gain 30, right? It's like this up and down, right? And you get to a point where you're just like, well, I mean, I learned that wasn't the plan that was going to work for me. I learned that I shouldn't hang out with those people. I learned that, I shouldn't go to all the Christmas parties, right? okay, so now I'm going to take what I know and I'm going to continue from where I left off and go from there, right? And it's just like this kind of constant journey. And then when you get there, it's like you haven't really succeeded. It's just you've gotten to the mark that you said you wanted to get to. And then you just end up choosing another one, right? But in the end, it's like, it's not failure unless you completely give up.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great.
So, I mean, that's how I've always thought about it. And so I always think like my favorite folks to work with from a nutrition perspective are the ones that have tried a lot of things, right? It's like if you've tried keto and vegan and, you know, Weight Watchers and all the other things, well, now I know that you have the ability like to ask questions and see if there's other things that will work for you. And so if we find something that's like perfect for you and we make it easy, then it's more likely that I can get you to stick with it because you know that the grass isn't greener on the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? Doing keto is not going to solve all your problems because it didn't the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would say like it's kind of redefining what failure is. It's not really failure. It's just feedback.
Yeah.
You know, I tried this thing, you know, it got me these results, but it didn't get me all the results. Okay. Now I have that, you know, that one's in my bank. I could go back to that and I can get those same results if I wanted to, or I could try this other thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I totally agree. And I feel like, especially in this case, it's like in every case, that's the ultimate question. Like every time, you know, at least I'm working with a client and there's some kind of obstacle that comes up, it's like, awesome. We found an area where we're exposed, or we're like, we found another area where we haven't done that much work. Like, it's awesome. You were able to make all this progress doing this thing, but then you hit this roadblock. Awesome. Like we haven't had the opportunity to touch this one yet. And now we do.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, and these are things that, you know, we're here working in like a fitness and nutrition context, but for a lot of people, it's like the same patterns that they fall into around nutrition and fitness, they fall into in other areas of their lives. So it's like, right, if we're coming against this roadblock where part of the issue is that you're turning to food as like a reward to yourself for like a little bit of respite or to like tune out some of this like overstimulation that you're feeling, maybe what we need to address is the fact that you are overstimulating. We don't have other strategies to give you your own time. And this isn't something that we've worked on before. And maybe it's coming up in other areas of your life too. So good thing we're here. Like good thing it's presenting this way because it gives us the chance to work on it.
Yeah. So Rebecca, this made me think of you because you've been working on like reforming your lifts, like your Olympic lifts, right? And like, what kind of caused you to do that? Because I mean, basically, the way you described it, it sounded like, okay, I got to start back from zero, right? So what caused you to do that? And then like, how did you not go, fuck this? I've been lifting for years. Like, why do I have to redo this?
Well, I hired a coach who knew more than me about it. So there was that. And then when looking at it from her eye, I could see, I mean, she gave me a good explanation as to why, which gave me buy-in.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, I guess this is what we're doing. So I'm going to back off and trust the process.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really failure. Like I can still lift heavy and I still do the things. I've done all the things to lead up to it on my own. And what that taught me is that I can do a lot on my own.
Yeah.
And if I want to, I can, find a way. But also what it says about me is that I'm, willing to keep learning.
Yeah. So I kind of want to frame this a little bit because maybe I undersold it. Like you tell me if I'm wrong. Basically, you hired a coach and you were like, hey, I want to do another competition at some point, right? Yeah. Or, I want to hit the numbers that I used to hit. And your coach said, hey, like based on the way you lift, like you are lifting like a CrossFitter and we want to, and that's fine. It's gotten you where you need to be. But in order to get to the numbers you want to get to, we're going to have to like go back to basics on your lifts and have you lift more like an Olympic lifter, right? So when she said that to you, like what was your immediate reaction?
Frustration, but some of it was actually embarrassment because I'm like, man, what was I doing?
Yeah.
You know? So it's, I mean, I don't know what I don't know. So it's like, oh, I thought I was right. And it's funny. I remember when I did my like testing videos, you know, build to a heavy single snatch and clean and jerk. In my mind, I'm like, oh, I can do this
these
so
are gonna be
well.
so great.
Like she's nothing. She's nothing to be
Yeah.
said.
She's gonna be so impressed with these videos. Like on A Christmas Story where he turns in the thing and she gives him an A++. Is that?
Totally.
Yeah.
And I
Plus,
didn't.
plus,
Well, I
plus.
didn't get that feedback, and actually, I've looked back at that video from November, and now that I can spot all the things, I'm like, holy crap, who was I? And I'm almost cringe at like old videos of myself. Like, oh, I can't believe I lifted like that.
Yeah, but that moment where you got that feedback and you were just like embarrassed, like why didn't like what made you even show up for day 2?
Well,
you know
there,
what I mean?
Yeah, I'm there to get better. Ultimately, I'm paying for this, or I sought her out because I wanted help.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, if she had said, wow, you're a great lifter, then why, like, was I looking for her to just be like, you don't need me.
Yeah.
Keep doing you.
Right.
And I sought her out because I knew I've always wanted a coach. I've always wanted an Olympic lifting coach. And it's something that, you know, I've thought about doing for years. I finally pulled the plug and did it.
Yeah.
And
Pulled the plug.
pulled the plug. It plugged it in.
Pulled the trigger.
Pulled the trigger.
Finally, you killed somebody.
I'm not great with my metaphors, guys.
Either way, you're killing someone. You're either shooting them or you're pulling the plug.
I'm pulling things. I finally pulled things.
I need to get better at my lifting. Someone's got to die.
Yeah, but I came into it wanting to be a student and wanting to learn from somebody who knows more, who's been in that field longer than me. And, you know, she wasn't like, God, I can't believe you've been doing it this way, cringe. She even said that as a CrossFitter herself, she came from a CrossFitting background. She was a gymnast before, then CrossFit, and then started doing Olympic lifting.
Yeah.
And she's like, I had the same issues.
Yeah.
So everything I'm telling you, like, I had to relearn myself.
Yeah. So she was basically describing like she had to do all of this stuff, and you know, her describing that story kind of gives you a little bit of faith that she knows what she's talking about. Yeah.
And you know, she's worked with, you know, people in the area who I trust as well. So
Yeah. So, okay. So she told you that, you know, your lifts are trash and you need to change everything, right? and then you basically have to go back to doing like basic stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Did you feel at any point like a failure there?
I mean, failure isn't the right word. It's like when I'm sure you look back at old videos of yourself, or you think about when you first started becoming a coach, and like some of the things that you said when you were on the spot, and you're like, God, I can't believe I used that cue. Like, who was I? Yeah. And I mean, it's just like anytime you start something new, you're just like, oh, face palm. I got through that. And so, you know, I had those moments like, what have I been coaching everybody wrong? And so I actually had to analyze myself and what I've taught other people. Like, did I lead them astray? You know, and I was just teaching them what I learned. Like I learned, you know, in CrossFit from other CrossFit coaches. So then I'm like, man, did I suck? But so I had to give myself grace, right? I had to realize that we all can only rely on the information that we have, the facts that we have, and it's not like it's wrong. And I still watch people move. I still watch people in the CrossFit games, and they're like, oh, that's how I clean. Like, that's how I do it. It's not wrong.
Oh, yeah. I mean, people can snatch 300 pounds with poor technique. It's like, it's not optimal. Is basically it. Yeah.
But if someone's like, hey, Rebecca, I want to go to the Olympics in the clean and jerk, if they had come to me 5 years ago, I'd be like, God, I can't believe I coached him that way. Yeah. Whereas now I feel like I have more information and I'm a better coach. So,
Yeah. So you felt like a little bit of embarrassment, a little bit of like cringe looking back. And, you know, did you think like, kind of relating it to this story, did you think like, oh, I wasted so much time?
No,
not
never
at all.
thought I wasted time.
Why not?
I mean, I've accomplished a lot, even, you know, lifting how I was lifting.
Yeah.
And I developed the I don't want to say habit, but the commitment to a sport. And I know, like, if I was just like, hey, I'm here, teach me, and I didn't know what it was like to spend hours in my garage with a PVC pipe, like filming myself and, just trying to teach myself how to lift all by myself, I wouldn't have known the amount of work that it takes to get to that level.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm really bad with words today. I've grown kind of exponentially. Like she's mentioned that I've, picked up on things really quickly because I do have that dedication and I have experience, trusting the process that like this is a slow game. It's not going to happen next week. And the days where I'm frustrated, like, oh, I suck today, I can look back, 6 months ago and compare the difference and like, okay,
yeah,
I am getting better.
And you have videos of where you were 6 months ago.
I have videos of where I was 10 years ago.
You look back on those periodically.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you mentioned like so many kind of critical points here that people can apply to like their own journeys. So one is like, you are learning something every time you try this. Like you try vegan and you learn, how to like restrict your food choices, right? You try keto and you realize like, oh, I need more fat for this thing to function or whatever, right? And you learn discipline by doing all these different things, even if
that's the word I was looking for, discipline.
Even if maybe you lost the 20 pounds and then you gained it again, right? It's like, even if you did that, you still learn that you have the ability to do it.
Yes.
Right? And it's like, and so your path to getting there is actually going to be a lot faster, right? Because like, okay, great. I'm going to dial up the intensity a little bit, do the things or something similar to what I did before. Or maybe it's a whole new thing, but I can use that same discipline of showing up every day and doing the thing, right? And so sort of that lesson, but also the thing you highlighted that I think more of our clients need to do, and I think as coaches, we want to highlight this more, is you are looking back at old videos and seeing where you used to be and then seeing where you are now, right? And this is like a thing. I know people don't always like doing this. If you took a photo of yourself when you started and you took a photo of yourself now and you showed up at the gym 3 days a week for 6 months, even if you didn't lose a single pound, you will look different. I absolutely guarantee it. And you will look back at that old photo of you, and if you can imagine back to where you were, you would wish that you are where you are right now, right? And it's like sometimes reflecting actually helps you recognize the progress that you've made, right?
I got taller.
Did you look back like 20 years ago?
No, when I first started here. I look a lot taller now.
Yeah, that's because you stand with your shoulders back.
Yeah.
That's that pride coming out.
I think the other part of it is feeling embarrassed that you have to start all over again, right? So and then that sometimes you get no motivation for that, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like we're all super hard on ourselves. So like just saying, "Oh, here I go again," starting from the very beginning or where I started, it hits hard, right? And it's painful to hear that. So I think that's another big thing that I tend to see with clients is like, oh, here we go again. Like I'm starting again from scratch.
Yeah.
So it's like the embarrassment part. It's like, and honestly, no one's really looking at that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's kind of hard to see that when you have to do it over and over again.
Yeah. When you came back from having Weston, did you feel embarrassed when you first came back?
No, because I just had a baby.
Yeah.
Did you have a baby?
Say something about it.
Yeah.
Please
Did you have a
say
baby?
something about the weight.
Oh my gosh.
Do you ever feel embarrassed?
Yeah, I do.
Tell us when. What embarrasses you, Wendy? So we can talk about that in the next podcast.
I remember a story.
What?
Like a muscle up.
Why would you bring that up?
Oh, when you farted during a muscle up?
Yo, really?
Yeah.
Not everyone knows.
Whatever. That's just the...
That happened.
That's a funny thing, though, like, embarrassed to having start over again, right? Like, I personally have been through this. And it's just like, you're not always on your on your diet. And for me, that means I get off my diet for a month or two, I can gain 20 pounds pretty quick.
Yeah.
Right. And then all of a sudden, stuff you used to be able to do, you're not able to do. And you feel like you're really out of shape and you're just like kind of avoiding people or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like you said, people aren't paying that much attention.
They're not. I was talking to Rebecca the other day, and this is how we found out that we both had this similar struggles. So what I've noticed after having Weston is that I tend to gain weight really fast. And before having Weston, like I would stay at a certain way and it wouldn't move, right? Even if I were to, go higher calories, lower calories off my macros, it wouldn't move, right? And now, like if I were to be off my numbers like 2 days, I would gain 3 pounds.
Yeah.
And
so you're holding water more. Basically.
Right.
Yeah.
And like I have to remind myself, like you had a baby, right? So things are not the same that before. But I will be a liar if I were to tell you that doesn't get to me, right? Or I don't go on panic mode, like, oh no, like what am I doing? Do I need to eat less, right? Yeah. And I just have to remind myself, like, hey, it's okay. This is probably what it's gonna look like right now, and that's okay. Yeah. So like just kind of telling that to myself helps, but it does get to me sometimes, right? Where I gain 3 pounds within a day and I'm like, what the hell? Like it just happened one day that I'm off. And then,
3 pounds, huh?
Yeah. And then, I mean, this could be multiple things like my period's coming and all that stuff, right? So there's more to that. Or, what I did the day before, did I lift, right? All those things. And this is where I can maybe talk to Rebecca and say, hey, and we talk about this all the time. Like, I weighed myself today, but then we both go like, it's okay. Like, it doesn't mean anything. Is it hurting your performance? Do you feel like you gained 3 pounds? Right. And it's like, no. So it's like, why are you caring about what the weight says? But again, it's something new that I'm trying to get used to, right? That it's still there, but that's something that has come up after having Weston. Why are you laughing?
3 pounds. Okay. That's all. I can gain 10 pounds in 2 days.
Right. But in comparison to how I was before, having a baby, it's different for me. Yeah. Right. And again, it could be different for anyone.
Question. Weren't you in your 20s too? Before you had Weston?
I was 29. Yeah. Not much of a difference. I don't know.
Welcome to your 30s and 40s, Wendy.
I'm more so speaking for what's happening with me, right? It looks different for everyone, but this is something that I'm getting used to, and sometimes I do feel a little embarrassed when that happens. And I mean, it's better now, but I do get embarrassed. To answer your question, I do, right? And it's not only that, but
are you embarrassed right now?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
Did you have a baby? That's why.
Got 2 of them. They're not babies anymore, though. I mean, this is the thing, though. Like, you feel all this kind of way, but most other people aren't paying attention, right? Yeah. And the thing is, when it comes to this, like, okay, so maybe you did great on a workout one day, and then you did that same workout 6 months later, and you did terrible on it. Yeah. Right. And it's just like, even if somebody notices, like even if someone says, hey, didn't you do better on this last time? They don't care. They don't care. Like people are not paying that much attention. And it doesn't mean that you're starting all over from scratch. Right. It's just part of the journey. Right. And if you're talking specifically about the weight, about what the scale says, I mean, that's just one of the many measures, is that you can use to kind of see your progress. Right. Right. And if you're like, okay, great, like I want to weigh 170 and I currently weigh 190 or whatever it is. Okay, well, you've gotten to 170 before and maybe it took you 6 months. It's probably not going to take you 6 months this time if you focus, on and do the things that you need to do, if that is really important to you. Right. Yeah. And so, I coming back to this idea of failure, like I just don't really use that term too much. Personally, I kind of think about it the same way Rebecca does. It's like, okay, now there's this whole new world that I need to examine, and I'm going to use the tools that I have to do the things I need to do to solve this problem that I've now, uncovered. The fact that I need to remake my lifts, for example. But it's like the truth is, even if you have to remake your lifts, it's like they're not going to be that far away from where they are right now. And maybe there's just a few patterns that you need to change, and you know how to break down the patterns and do the drills to get to the patterns, right? Just like if you're like, hey, I got to re-lose this 20 pounds. Okay, great. Like you know that you're going to have to like dial in what's in your kitchen, maybe, you know, not go out for a couple weekends in a row, and then, you know, do a few things that you did before and you lose that 20 pounds, right? And again, it's not a failure. It's just like, okay, this is the season that I'm in right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've lost weight, or you've gained weight, you lost weight multiple times, right?
Multiple times, yeah.
Is it every single time that you lose the weight gets harder, or does it get easier? Or have you found like there's been sometimes that's been easier, sometimes has been harder? Because that's another thing that I hear a lot, right? Like every single time that I, you know, gain the weight back, every time I try to lose it again, it gets harder every single try.
Yeah. I was over 300 pounds, right? And then I lost, you know, whatever. I lost 100 pounds, right? Got down to about 220, 215. Actually, I was like 205 at one point. And, you know, I bounce around between like 215 and 250, right? 250 is about as high as I'll ever get again. That's like, for me, that's like rock bottom. So I'm 6 feet tall. I'm a big dude. 250 is like still too much weight for me. And so what happens is, as if I'm going through a season where I'm not paying as much attention to my nutrition, when I get to be around 230 or so, I start going, maybe I should do something about this. And sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. When I get to 240, I'm feeling like pretty bad, right? And it becomes more about, I don't want to feel bad anymore, right? It's not about, I want to lose weight. It's like, I don't want to feel this way. You know, I feel like not the same person that I was. And so I focus on what happens for me is, I don't focus so much on the weight, although I will weigh myself. I focus on what are the things that I need to do every day and how many days do I need to do them. And as soon as I start doing those things, then I start to feel better. And when I start feeling better, then I start to I start to see a little bit of progress, how I feel. I'll lose a little bit of weight, and then I'll get motivated to really dial it in. Does that make sense? So it's not that it gets harder. It actually doesn't get harder. I know exactly what to do, right? And it's just like, I know what I have to give up. So in some sense, it's easier, right? And what I do is I will just focus on what I need to do the first 2 weeks. That's all I focus on at the beginning. Because it's like the first 2 weeks are the hardest, right? And it's like, okay, what am I willing to do the first 2 weeks? Great. I'm willing to not eat dessert for 2 weeks. Okay, great. I'm not going to have ice cream for 2 weeks. That's it. And as soon as I do that, I start to feel a little bit better. And then the next 2 weeks, I dial it up a little bit more. Usually after about a month, I'm on full on, like, I'm going to, lose 20 pounds mode. Does that make sense?
So you don't put the goal, you just do a habit, or you do a small thing.
Yeah.
Right?
I start small.
Yeah, start small.
Yeah. Yeah. And usually I go back to something I've done before. Right? It's like, okay, I'm going to cut out like all carbohydrates, for example. I'll do that for a couple of weeks. Okay, I feel a little bit better, a little more energy. Okay, now let me dial this in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I'll do something like that. And then what I've been working on lately is just how long can I maintain a certain weight, right?
Yeah.
For me, it's like between 215 and 220. How long can I maintain that, right? And it's been, a good long time now. And so it actually doesn't get harder until you get to the last like 5 or 10 pounds. That's where it's like, you got to really, really be disciplined. But that's kind of like, that doesn't matter at that point.
Right.
It doesn't, you don't need to do it for your health. It's more just like, I just want to see if I can get to 8% body fat or whatever. Right.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it's actually harder because you have the experience. I think you have both eyes open, knowing how much work it's going to take, like Rebecca said.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have to grind every day. Maybe you don't have to take 6 months or 6 years to get there.
Right.
But you're going to have to take a bunch of videos of you doing PVC snatches and all of that kind of stuff. And you're going to have to clean out your kitchen. You're going to have to like make sure you get more protein, all of that stuff. You just have to dial that stuff in. Here's the thing that I found. Going through this now for 15 years, some of those habits stick forever. And that's what you're going for.
Right.
It's just like, I pretty much eat the same breakfast every day now.
Yeah.
Right. And I pretty much eat the same lunch every day. I pretty much do my meal prep no matter what now.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, it's just easier.
Right. You've done it so many times now.
Done it so many times.
Yeah.
And then, like sometimes I'll go out on the weekends and eat whatever the hell I want.
Right.
But I probably won't eat, and I probably won't get pizza. I don't love pizza like I used to.
Right.
I'm probably going to get tacos instead.
So you have like all this information, what works, what doesn't. So like you can put it all together.
And it's not like I'm ashamed. If I have pizza and I want pizza, then I'll get it. Right. Yeah. But it's just like, if it's my choice, I'm probably going to choose tacos. I'm probably going to choose chicken and rice. I'm probably going to make different choices because I have tried and failed so many different things and had so much experience. It's like, I know this is the thing that's going to work for me.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does.
Yeah. I think turning what this person said, because they're not a failure. They have succeeded. They have lost 20 pounds.
The thing is, we're really practiced at not really thinking in black and white. I'm winning and I'm losing. And one thing that I've noticed for folks is not everybody has that skill yet.
Yeah.
To be able to see that just because they're back at where they started weight-wise, that's not a failure. And the challenge is actually developing that skill of figuring out, we use weight here as a metric.
Yeah.
And the problem is, there's so many, we've talked about all these skills that you develop along the way. And you could, if we had a good way of tracking what each of those skills are, and for some people we do, we could look at the huge long list of actually you've done X, Y, Z here, but you're just looking at this number.
Yep.
Right? And so and if you're living and dying by this number, then it's going to feel like success or failure rides on that number versus this huge laundry list of skills that you've developed along the way. And so it's we can sit here and say well, it's not a failure, but it's can they?
Yeah.
Can, whoever this person is, say for themselves, are they practiced enough in this thought process of can I pull that one step back like you did when you're doing your Olympic lifts? You were able to look that one step back and be yeah, maybe I feel a little bit of embarrassment in the moment, but I can step back and see it as part of the bigger picture. That stepping back and seeing as part of the bigger picture is something that not everybody has. Anyway, so I think
that's why they have coaches.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I mean, and also it's helpful to hear a whole bunch of other people's stories.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things you said is your coach shared the story of I had to go through this.
Yeah.
And if she's I don't know if this is ever going to work for you, your lifts are so bad that we're going to have to just redo everything, then it's you're not going to have a whole lot of faith that this is possible.
Yeah.
But, if the coach is well, I had to go through this is my story, then you're okay, great. This makes sense to me.
Yeah. And there's, go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, there's also a reason why we encourage certain practices for health and for weight loss and not others. And that's because, to your point about losing weight or gaining weight and having it be harder to lose time and time again, if you go the very restrictive route to lose weight and you're not doing any kind of strength training, and then you do then end up gaining the weight back, it is a lot harder to keep off because now your body has learned that A, starvation is imminent, so I better hold on to every single thing that I get. And B, because you were so restrictive, you may lose fat, but you lose a lot of muscle mass too, so now your metabolic rate drops. So even if you go back to eating the same way you were eating before, you could gain weight. Mm-hmm. And so it is very real. That experience, I've worked with so many people for that. That experience is very real. And they've tried again and again, and they just end up on this way where their weight just goes up and up and up, even though they're eating quote unquote the same thing. Yeah. But it's because of this process that they've been through over and over again. And it's really that process is so addicting because if you restrict heavily, you can lose a lot of weight fast. And the heavier and heavier you get, the more that feels urgent. I get it. The emotion of just I just want to get this off of me. I used to be this amount. So the urgency to do it quickly, makes sense.
Yeah.
But the way we ask people to do it is different, which is
go check out the podcast about how you need to
that's
eat more.
right. Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Because I mean that's part of it is that whole time I was training, I was weight training and doing all this stuff. So it's just it's actually really easy for me to lose fat because I continue to lift weights and gain muscle.
Yeah.
And it's just so then it's okay, well, even the times where I'm gaining weight, it's like I'm still lifting weight. So when I try to lose fat, I actually have more muscle, and it just makes it like easier, right? It's the discipline part that's like, you know, that's the part that I think is can be hard for people. So
and the time frame, like if you know how long it took you to do it the first time, and here you are trying to do it a second time, and you're looking it's like, oh my gosh, is it going to be another 9 months before I'm back there? Like that can fuck you up. Yeah. So it's like, don't even like, I really don't encourage people to look like further than the next day. Like, what do you have to do to win the next day? Yeah. Can you do that? Awesome.
Yeah.
And you don't have to win every day. You just have to win 8 out of 10 of them. Honestly.
Yeah, that's right. 80% of the days. So, you know, I would say if you're listening to this and you feel like you're failing, you've fallen off or whatever, come talk to one of us. Because really, like, there's a lot of ways, and you kind of highlighted this, if the only thing you're measuring is the weight on the scale, there's a lot of ways to kind of look at this. And if you've been through a whole bunch of experiences of trying to lose weight and you've exercised discipline and you've done all the training, whatever, we can use that. Right? It's like your ability to show up every day is going to get you where you need to be, right? Is it going to happen in 3 weeks, 6 weeks? Maybe not. But your ability to show up is going to get you where you need to be as long as we change and adjust the things that you are doing, right? And make them take you closer to where you want to be versus taking you further away, right? So awesome. All right. Well, at that, we will end this. Rebecca's got to hop on a plane.
Well, I got to coach a class or two first.
And yeah, she's going to coach a class and then go straight to the airport. We will see you all next week. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in. If you like this episode, we've got plenty of others. Go check out this one over here.